This is a wild card weekend edition of First and Pod. 5 of the 6 games are in the books, and we just finished watching the only good one so far. Washington, with their 7th kicker of the year, knocking through a game winner to take down Tampa, the only road team to win so far, 23-20. And Jayden Daniels now etched his name into the history books. He is the 4th rookie quarterback to win a road playoff game, joining Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez, and Mr. Unlimited himself, Russell Wilson. The Commanders' first playoff win since 2005, and it was also in Tampa, and Mark Brunell was their quarterback that day. That's how long ago it was, almost 20 years. So here we go. Andrew Fillipponi, Patrick Peterson, Spencer Ray producing. Remember, subscribe, rate, review. Let's continue to grow this podcast, and we'll hit on every game and every matchup here throughout the rest of the playoffs. Pat, I think Jayden Daniels is the lead to this game because, as we saw with other teams, wildcard weekend, quarterbacks lost games for their teams. Justin Herbert definitely lost the Chargers game for LA. I think you could argue Jordan Love's turnovers were the difference, and the Packers lost to Philly. And Tampa never stopped them in this game. They didn't punt. There were red zone stops, and there were turnover on downs when Washington went for it on 4th down. But basically, Todd Bowles, who's thought of as one of the great defensive coaches in the NFL, Pat, against a rookie, seeing him a second time, and at pretty much every single Washington drive was successful in this game. And that's not supposed to happen when your quarterback's in his first year.
Yeah, man. Huge shout out to the Washington Commanders and and Jayden Daniels, the rookie quarterback, man. Like you said, etching his name in NFL history by becoming the fourth rookie quarterback to win on the road. And again, Jayden Daniels just playing above his years, man. Being a rookie, just honestly, like you said, he probably played the best football out of all of the wild card quarterbacks overall throughout this wild card weekend. So you can go back and just look at this game, being 24-35, 268 yards, and being a leader rusher. So basically, not only being the only the better quarterback throughout the wild card weekend, but he outplayed a veteran quarterback in Baker Mayfield today.
The rushing stat is important to point out because it's not like he was their leading rusher in a way where he put up big numbers. Right. They couldn't run the ball at all.
No.
He had 36 yards. Eckler had 27. Brian Robinson had 10 carries for 16 yards. So they basically had this game we're describing where they were not perfect on offense because they had to kick field goals, but they were successful every drive, and he didn't have a running game to help him. It was all on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it was a beautiful thing to see because you don't see many quarterbacks coming in the league and seeing the offensive coordinator and the head coach and the team success pretty much weighing on the quarterback's shoulders. And that's pretty much how it's been, week in and week out. This team went from 4 wins last year going to 12 wins, 13 wins, including their playoff win today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this team is a dangerous football team because, like you pointed out, they haven't punted all day. So they're going to stay aggressive on offense. So if they have an opportunity to go for it, if it's, 4th in that, shorter range, as we've seen, they're not holding back. They're going to try to convert that 4th down and keep their foot on the gas, So that's what I commend Dan Quinn and his staff for, although they do have a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback, and a young football team, but they're not playing like it at all on all phases. So it goes to show that this coaching staff have experience. They have the right leaders in that locker room to not only lead these guys, but also help them understand how important playoff football is versus regular season football.
They have the highest conversion rate on 4th down, I think, of any team in NFL history. It's over 85%. That is a common thread among all of the NFC teams that have advanced. We don't know the Monday night winner yet, but Detroit, Philly, and Washington are all teams that'll go for it on 4th down, and they're all exceptional in those short yardage situations. We know Philly does the tush push play. In Detroit, Dan Campbell's never met a 4th down he didn't want to go for.
Right.
So, I mean, like I have to walk back some of my criticism from early in the year where I got on coaches for going for it on fourth down so much. It's easier to get 10 yards when you got 4 tries instead of 3, Pat.
Yeah.
And these coaches they've baked it in to their play calling, and the team knows that they're going to do it. So the team's on board, the players are on board. And like, I think it manifests in their success doing it. I mean, Philly basically invented a way to get a first down with their rugby play.
Right.
And in Washington, like they didn't do it every time, but they bring Mariota and Daniels on the field at the same time, and it kind of flusters opponents, I think. Like I give Kingsbury, who you played for with a year, a lot of credit because Ben Johnson didn't take this job. He could have had it if he wanted, but he wasn't sold on the idea of pairing with a rookie quarterback in a situation like Washington where they've never won. And Dan Quinn made a brilliant hire here because Daniels he never looks overwhelmed to me, Pat.
No.
He never looks like he's like, oh shit, like this pressure's getting to me or that hit got to me. And when they showed his fourth quarter stats, I was just blown away by how he even like gets better and
As the
lives
game goes
for
on.
the more clutch, more pressure packed moments. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a special kid, man. And like you said, Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders made a great hire by picking up Cliff Kingsbury. And like we always talked about, that's something as well that these organizations are looking deep into as well, pairing their young rookie quarterback, not even their young rookie quarterback, their quarterback up with a play caller that can help them flourish, throughout the season and throughout their career as well. So great hire by the Washington Commanders by bringing Cliff Kingsbury in, and quite frankly, he's putting together a damn good case to have an opportunity to be a head coach again in this league.
Bottom line for Tampa, I think, is that even though defensively, I think they're going to look at this game and say, like, how did we not get stops? We've got to upgrade at corner for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think they get pressure with Kancey up the middle. David has defied Father Time to this point, but their corners are just so bad that's a place where they've got to improve if they're going to start to win these games again. And then, I mean, Baker kind of had I think, like this season, he put up huge touchdown numbers, but there were backbreaking turnovers in there. And that fumble was just a huge turning point play. I mean, they get that stop at the goal line, and then you give the ball right back to Washington, and that was the opening. You give Jayden Daniels an inch, he took a mile there with that one. So that's, to me, it's plays like that, Pat, why Baker, I put him in my top 10 quarterbacks, but he, unlike Josh Allen this year, was not able to completely conquer that turnover or careless play gene that has infected him really since he's come into the NFL.
Right. Yeah. Baker always had that gunslinger mentality. He's a guy that, trusts his arm strength more than the defensive back coverage, so, and like you said, he didn't throw any.
I don't even know what really happened on that play. Was he trying to keep it and fake it to the pitch man? Was it just like a bobbled?
It kind of looked like a bobble play, but then again, we've seen Baker do this, time and time again. A prime example when they played the Saints last week, when pretty much the guys had him all covered up and he pitched it out to Bucky Irvin for a touchdown. So that's just something that Baker does. But at this time, this given time, it was something that came back and bite him in the butt. Trying to, do a little bit too much versus just securing the ball and making sure that you can see another down. But that was Baker, doing Baker things, trying to make a play for his football team and continue to extend the drive. But it just didn't happen that way by fumbling the ball and end up ultimately giving the ball up to the Washington Commanders.
All right, so Washington now moves on to play Detroit. That game is going to be 8:00 Eastern time Saturday night, divisional round weekend. Let's get into the other games. We'll start with Packers and Eagles. This was interesting. The Eagles offense got booed several times in this game Jalen Hurts did very little offensively. A.J. Brown caught only one football, but they won the game by double digits. So was some of the criticism that was levied at them for the way they won the game, was it justified and earned, Pat?
I mean, at the end of the day, I believe so, because the playoffs is not only one of the, hardest places to play, but there's going to be, all type of game time adjustments, the team really understanding what you want to do, play in and play out. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles played the way the Philadelphia Eagles play, control the clock. Only thing that was missing, that they didn't have any big plays in the passing game for the most part, but if you go back and watch the Philadelphia Eagles throughout the season, tell me when Jalen Hurts had, how many times he had over 280-yard passing. You know what I mean? It's just something that just don't happen with their offense. Their offense.
Now, is that because they don't trust him? I mean, why are they asking him to do so little in their offense?
That's a good question, but I honestly think, as a defender, it makes him that much more dangerous, because as a defender, defending dual threat quarterbacks, he's a guy that not only can throw the ball decent enough that can beat you, but you got to worry about how he can beat you with his legs. He's not like, most running quarterbacks that don't really have any accuracy or can't throw the ball at all. He can still, get the ball to his playmakers. And mind you, he has some of the best playmakers in the game, and Devontae Smith.
And his line gives him tons of time. I mean, the offensive line is phenomenal. At one point in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, I looked up and he was 6 of 13 for 39 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're an RPO team. They're not like a drop back, slaying the football all around the yard team. They're a team that's going to, like I said, control the game by running the football, RPOs, screens here and there. And then if you start stacking the box, then that's when they take their shot. But for the most part, that's how they win majority of the football games.
But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't understand because I've said very, very complimentary things of Hurts. I think when I put my top 10 together, I put Hurts in there, and you said take Hurts out and put Herbert in, or somebody else in. I don't know if it was Herbert, but you said don't put him in the top 10. They have the pieces and the weapons to basically have Baltimore's offense.
Yeah.
They've got better receivers. They've got a better offensive line. Their running back might even be better. And look, we know with Baltimore, it's run first. I mean, they averaged more yards per carry than any team in NFL history this year. But Lamar still got his 40 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
And it was only 36 rushing yards for Hurts. So I don't know, man. This is another question I guess I'll ask you and defer to you as a pro. Did it feel to you watching like Philadelphia's defense, like Philly's defense won them the game, or the Packers offense lost the game? Like it was more self-inflicted wounds by Green Bay than it was Philadelphia making great plays to force the turnovers and get stops.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Philadelphia Eagles defense won this football game.
Okay.
There's no question about that. Causing 3 turnovers, holding Josh Jacobs under 100 yards. He was the biggest rusher on the Green Bay Packers team all game. The next leading rusher was Jordan Love with 10 yards. So I feel like for the most part the defense did a solid job against the run game, and just against the pass, they just pretty much put a blanket on all of the receivers.
And then they all started getting hurt.
Say it again.
And then they all started getting hurt.
Exactly. And then it seemed like the
He went out.
Yep. It seemed like the Philadelphia Eagles had a blindfold on Jordan Love, especially in the second half. So the offense could never really get out the game. It started off with the first kickoff of the game, when the kick returner fumbled the ball.
I thought that play should have been reversed. I thought Nixon got it back.
I did too. But apparently, the refs saw what they saw. But that's when it's going to be a long day when you give the Philadelphia Eagles extra possession, because that is a team that you do not want to give extra possession to, because we know they're going to control the clock. We know they're going to play keep away. by controlling the clock, and you have to pretty much play mistake-free football when you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot, especially during the second half of their football season. So the Philadelphia Eagles definitely got it going in the right time of the year. I know there was plenty of questions about if Vic was going to survive as a defensive coordinator, but this team is finally getting back into preseason prediction by being one of the final teams standing in the NFC.
Do you like that Sirianni came out after the game and said, "I don't think we had the kind of game we wanted on offense"?
No, I think that's reasonable in what he alluded to after the game, because they did not play the game that they really wanted to offensively, although they was able to put some points on the board, move the ball efficiently up and down the field. But offensive coordinators and offensive minded guys, they always think about time of possession have to equal points. I don't know what the time of
could have
possession
said
was.
what you said, basically, like, "Hey, our defense played its ass off. We
Mhm.
controlled the clock in the game. This is who we want to be." I was
Right.
surprised that he didn't take that tact of like, "This is our identity as a football team." Instead, he almost bemoaned how difficult things were for them for chunks of that game. Pat, I got to be honest with you, though. I feel like if they had played Washington, they would have lost. Just the way both teams played today. If that Eagles team if the way Washington played matched up against the Eagles, I think Washington would have beat them today. I thought I guess what I'm saying is I thought the Commanders' offensive performance, that they could have taken that game on the road and given Philadelphia a better game, and I'm not convinced that Philadelphia's offense would have scored more than 22 points
Yeah, I can
against
see
the
that.
Commanders'
Yeah, I can
defense.
see that being, the Commanders giving, the Eagles a fight, just because how, I won't say how potent their offense is, but the pressure that their offense is a lot um, is able to apply to the opposing team. You know what I mean? So you have to be thinking every time you're on the football field, we got to get points, because again, this is a young, hungry football team as well. Like you talked about earlier on in this segment, that they have the highest fourth down conversion rate, in the NFL. So again, when you're playing the Washington Commanders, we're playing against a rookie quarterback out of the window now, because his rookie season is pretty much over. He has graduated into as an NFL quarterback, and he's been playing this way throughout the football season. So it's actually pretty awesome to see the growth and the understanding of the game that Jayden has, at the quarterback position, because it's very rare that you see young quarterbacks come into the game that have the confidence, that have the poise, that have the understanding not only of his offense, but understanding how important he is to the football team. So his future is very, very bright. Again, man, Dan Quinn, they got the one with Jayden Daniels, because again, the moment never really seemed too big for him, and he just seemed to thrive in every big moment that present itself to him, and it's quite remarkable to see, to be honest with you.
It'll be interesting what the reaction is in Philly. My guess is their fans will be bitching and moaning about this game and say, "Hey, look at the way the other contenders played, the Bills, the Ravens this weekend. If we play this way against the Lions, we'll lose." But it did stylistically look like a lot of the Chiefs games this year, where the
Yeah.
offense wasn't all that successful, but the defense was so good that it didn't matter. All right, let's move on to the Broncos and Bills. Buffalo, after falling in a 7-0 hole, basically opened up a can of whoop ass on the Broncos. What impressed you most about Buffalo's win, Pat?
I have to go how stymied their run defense was. We talked about, how we felt, how the interior part of their defense was the weakest link. You couldn't tell coming out of this game, because the run defense was pretty much outstanding. Holding the Denver Broncos to 79 yards. Hell, Bo Nix was the highest rusher in that game as well. So defenses are coming to play. It seemed to be throughout this early start in this 2024 NFL draft. But the biggest takeaway, I go with the Bills defense. Bills rush defense able to pretty much take their running game out of the equation and trying to force Bo Nix to beat them with his arm, and that was something that he wasn't able to do. They applied a lot of pressure just with their guys up front to try to force him to beat coverages in the back end, and that was just something that he couldn't do on a consistent basis. So I go with the run defense of the Bills, because I know Sean Payton had that on the top of his mind as well, knowing that this is one of the weak links of this defense, because you don't want to get in a shootout match with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, because 9 times out of 10 you're not going to win that shootout. So
Yeah.
what do you feel you have to do? That's control the clock, and they was not able to do that. After that first drive from the Denver Broncos in this game here tonight. So the Bills was just a little bit too much for the Denver Broncos. It was a great season for the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and that Denver Broncos defense. But like I said, just the Buffalo Bills was just too much of a team for the Bills. I'm sorry, for the Denver Broncos to match up with. They were just more better equipped, all around the board, from the offensive line to the running back to the quarterback to the receivers. The defense played better than the Denver Broncos defense. They got to the quarterback better than the Denver Broncos defense. So just all around, just a hell of a game by the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen.
Well, they needed to do something against the run, because if they didn't and won the game, then they would really look like they were in for it with the Ravens coming to town next week.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to stop Denver's run game to prove or show that you have any prayer, any hope of doing it against Baltimore. I'm still not optimistic that they'll be able to. That's why I thought this offense needed to get back to showing that it could basically score at will. And they only punted once in the game. They're back over 30 points after they kind of paced themselves, I thought, the last few games of the season, the New England matchup, the Jets matchup. I was just blown away by Allen. And I know I shouldn't be, because he does it he all season. That's why he's going to be no worse than the runner-up in the MVP voting. But I think I appreciate it more, Pat, because he doesn't have Derrick Henry next to him. Yeah. And, he spread the ball around to 8 guys today. Their leading receiver was Curtis Samuel, who's like a jack-of-all-trades player. That 4th down touchdown throw he made to Johnson, the 3rd down back in the back of the end zone, that sliding catch play, was incredible. That he kept that play alive for as long as he did. He did not do it against some ham and egg defense. I mean, Denver led the league in sacks. They are statistically one of the best in the league. We've credited them all year for how well coached they are. They've got the best corner in the league. Allen, the defensive tackle's great. He's an all-pro. Benito came on and was one of the great pass rushers in the league this season. And it didn't matter against Allen. They ran the ball too, over 200 yards. Cook went over 100. I think he had like the most rushing yards in a game by a Bill since Thurman Thomas, going back to the early 90s. So it just was thorough. After the shaky start, they settled in. I mean, that could have rattled them right there. You let Denver come out and there's a 45-yard touchdown right over your head to start. I mean, that could have shook them a little bit, but it didn't. Defensively, they buckled in and got the job done. I think after that, Knicks might have only had like 100 passing yards. So
yeah, I believe so, because that first pass was about 50 yards.
Right. So, I didn't see it coming. I thought Denver was going to be more competitive than this. And it's just a reminder that the Bills are part of that elite tier of teams that can win a Super Bowl. And that Ravens-Bills game on paper looks like it's going to be the best one of next week. All right. Steelers and Ravens. I was telling you before we started taping the podcast that this game got me so down in the dumps that there was an empty bottle of Patron by the end of things. And I was watching Biggie Smalls and Spice Girls music videos till 1 o'clock in the morning. Biggie's
Oh
music
boy.
videos, man. He's got girls in bikinis with like little kids dancing. I mean, it's incredible what that guy
Yeah.
was doing. But I'm trying to avoid the topic here, which is the Steelers have matched the Dolphins for the longest active losing streak in the playoffs. They've lost 6 in a row. They have not won a playoff game since 2016. They were down 21-0. They gave up 299 rushing yards. It is by far the most rushing yards they've ever given up in a playoff game, Pat. What changes are necessary there?
Man, they got to get some more offensive players. And to be honest with you, if I'm not the GM, but if I was, I would definitely look into a new crop of receivers. Obviously, we see the guys not getting the job done. I love Jaylen Warren. I like Jaylen Warren as a running back. Got to figure out our quarterback position. Offensive line is decent. I really love, because they pretty much are, an identity of what, the blueprint is of our football team, far as being, far as wanting to control the line of scrimmage. And I think they have the right personality on the offensive line, that can pretty much carry that, because late in the fourth quarter, they want to be able to lean on teams and be able to, have a great 4-minute offense for the most part to try to keep the ball away from the opposing teams. So on defense, on the defensive side of the ball, I know they wanted to get younger. That's probably why I'm not there. But they have to get guys that in the secondary that can really play that sticky man-to-man coverage that they will want to play. Somebody that can really complement Joey as a cornerback. I really love how aggressive they call the game. I know they've been dealing with some injuries up front, and that's kind of how TJ Watt wasn't able to be effective in that playoff game against the Ravens. But I start with the offense on the offensive side of the ball. I know he spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball, but that really is, in my opinion, is not the issue, because if you have an offense that's able to convert on third downs, not have these slow starts to begin games, your defense can be much fresher than what they are versus being on the football field, after after 3 and out, a 5-play drive here, and then you're back on the football field after being on the field for about 8 to 6 plays. So all of that really pays into the team's success to help you really be successful on either side of the football. So again, I start on the offensive side of the ball, trying to figure out what our quarterback situation is. I want all new receivers. I keep Jaylen, and add some guys to the backfield. But I'm definitely starting there. And on the defensive side of the ball, I want to get me another corner, a much more agile linebacker to pair up with Patrick Queen. I don't know what their safety, contracts, situation. I think Elliott will be back. I think he signed a 2-year deal. So Mika and Elliott will be their safeties. But I think they really got to find somebody that can really complement Joey on the other side of the ball, so they can really start to get back to play that smothering pass defense and just smothering defense in general, to get them hopefully to break that curse, that winning, that losing streak in the playoff, because that's not a good streak that you want to be with the Dolphins, with being on a 6-game losing streak in the playoffs.
No mention of the coach, Pat. He now has the second most one-and-dones in the playoffs in NFL history. Marty Schottenheimer is 10. Mike's lost his first playoff game 8 times. So you've not mentioned him as a potential, or the people. Well, he's not going anywhere. We know that.
Yeah, he ain't going nowhere.
But,
that's why I didn't mention him.
But is that the right decision?
Yeah, that's the right decision, man. Mike Tomlin is Pittsburgh. I know the fans may not like what they're seeing, and how they're getting the job done. But that's going to be something that they got to do, and I think it just starts with the offense. I just don't think the offense is good enough, or pose a big enough threat to teams to where they strike fear. I mean, yeah, we know they had George Pickens And for the most part, he's a one-trick pony. He don't run any routes. He don't fear any DBs. He's just a 50-50 ball type of guy. So we need, at least if we have a 50-50 ball type of guy, we need to have a route runner on the damn team. And they didn't have one. Calvin Austin was, they're pretty much their deep threat, slot type of receiver. But for the most part, if you have a good defense, you can just smother him for the most part because he's a little guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and we've seen that again, time and time again throughout this season. So with all the changes that I said on the opposite side of the ball, if I'm Omar, I'm definitely addressing those and seeing what we can get out of a new crop of guys because we've seen in the past 3 years, despite having a different quarterback this season, but in the past 3 years, these guys on the offensive side of the ball have not been getting the job done.
The reason why I'm more concerned about Mike than you are is I think the mentality has to change. Since Ben left, it seems like Mike, the way the team has been built, they want to win with defense. Yeah. And they want to win with a team offensively that doesn't turn the ball over, plays smart, and complements the defense. The offense is the complementary part. The defense wins games. The defense is compensated that way to win games. It's the highest paid defense in the NFL. When you're the highest paid defense in the NFL, you can't let a fucking team run for 300 yards on you. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
Herb Street was right. They looked like a team that was dead man walking in that game. I mean, the possession that Baltimore had before the end of the first half, where they basically went 90-something yards on you and scored right as time expired, like
that was a dagger right there. Right. That was a nail in the coffin.
If that's the dagger, what's the drive pat later in the game where it was 13 runs? That's it. Every play was a run they scored on it. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, there needs to be more attention paid to their offense, and better players need to be on their offense, and they need to have a more balanced looking team where it's not just all on the defense to win games, but that requires them seeing the blueprint you're talking about. Their strategy or philosophy on winning has to change.
Yeah, I agree, because imagine if the Pittsburgh Steelers had, and let me see, a Kansas City offensive scheme or a Philadelphia offensive scheme, how much better their team would be. Because like I said earlier, man, their offense don't strike fear in anybody. And you can ask around the league,
For the record, I'm not convinced Russ could run one of those offenses. You've said they need to look at quarterback. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. His numbers look good, but they were mostly stats that were stockpiled when they were down 3 touchdowns in the second half of the game. I don't put any that's no silver lining to me.
Yeah. In the way and what I saw from Russ as well is that he struggled going through his progressions, which I thought that was something that he would be, better at, being a veteran quarterback, being, in his, however many offensive coordinators that he had, but being in a different offense, I thought he would be much better with his pass progression. It just seemed like every time he came off his first read, his eyes went down. He started, try to, go behind and go around the pass rush and wasn't able to get away from anybody.
That goes back to what you said when he first went into the lineup about like how they were trying to win. You're like, they're trying to win like they did with him in Seattle in 2013 and 14 when he was throwing for 150 yards in a game and they were beating teams because they had the best secondary maybe in NFL history. Mm-hmm. Like, the defense has got to live up to that lofty standard if you're going to play that way. The defense didn't, by the way. And then the other side of it is you're talking about the schemes. They hired Arthur Smith. They hired a guy that's more known, not for like his pass game, not like Cliff Kingsbury, not his pass game understanding or knowledge. He's a run game coordinator. Mm-hmm. He's a former offensive lineman. They ran for 29 yards in this game.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, there's got to be, I think, a major change in attitude on how they go about winning games. And I just don't see that changing, unfortunately. They're not going to fire Arthur Smith after 1 year. They don't do that to coaches here.
Nope.
So how does it get better? They're going to, my guess, Justin Fields will be their starting quarterback next year. And they'll see where that takes them. That's my prediction on it.
I saw that Pittsburgh Steelers had the highest odds on landing Aaron Rodgers. You don't like the Aaron Rodgers pickup?
Hold on, let me get this bucket over here so I can start throwing up in it right now. Okay, seriously, come on now.
Hey, I'm just saying that's what I saw.
I know. Peter King said that too, and he's about as dialed into this stuff as anybody. Mm-hmm. I can't see Mike Tomlin, after living with Ben for almost 15 years, I can't see him handing his franchise over to a 41-year-old, how do I say this, egomaniac. I can't.
Yeah, me either.
You know, I mean, they should be back to the drawing board, looking at just about every option. Mm-hmm. And so that's a name that's available, but no, that would be, hey, you know what that would be? That would be a recipe for Mike's first losing season if they brought him in here, which might not be the worst thing in the world because that's how they got Ben Roethlisberger in the first place, Pat.
Right.
All right, Chargers, Texans. I think it's time we have a very difficult, hard conversation on Justin Herbert because he threw more interceptions in this game than he did all season. And
a couple of those interceptions, though, I'll say 2 of them was not on him. But go ahead.
No doubt. But here's my rebuttal on that. I think he got away with other throws in this game.
He did.
I just did not think it was very accurate whatsoever. Now, in retrospect, people are trying to do this thing where they give Houston's defense big-time praise, and they're bringing up what they did to Jared Goff and Josh Allen. And, yeah, all those things are true. But you're still not supposed to score 12 points and throw 4 interceptions in a game, in a playoff game, when you're considered one of the great quarterbacks in the league and you're getting paid as if you're one of those guys. And I don't want to hear either as an excuse for him, Pat, well, look at who he has to throw the ball to. Josh Allen's leading receiver was Curtis Samuel today. All right? Like, you've got good enough guys. Yeah, you don't have an A.J. Brown. Yeah, you don't have a Justin Jefferson. The teams that are left playing in the AFC, none of these guys have an elite number 1 wide receiver. Kansas City's got guys. DeAndre Hopkins is an all-time great, but he's older. Buffalo's got Amari Cooper, but he's barely involved in their offense. Baltimore, Zay Flowers didn't play. The next best receiver was Rashard Bateman. So I don't want to hear that, Justin Herbert's problem is that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams got too old and they had to get rid of both of those guys for cap reasons and didn't have a plan B. You got to find a way to be better than that. And it makes me wonder if he's going to be one of these guys that just is never able to get over the hump or kick down that door because he's just got a mental block when it comes to these types of games, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, next year is going to be a really, really big season for him to see if he can, because this year he made some strides this year. Obviously still not able to win a playoff game just yet in 2 starts, but I feel like he definitely took some strides in this season, being under the first year under Jim Harbaugh. So it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how he grow from this going into next year football season. So it is. I think it really is it really is time to have that that heart-to-heart question with yourself. Is it and have that that hard question to yourself as well. Is Justin Herbert the guy moving forward? I won't say that he is, and I won't say that he's not just yet, because he's still a young quarterback, and you're right. They're paying him very handsomely to perform as a top-tier quarterback, and he has yet to be able to prove that in the playoffs. But I will say they have something to really lay their hats on, because, like I said, Justin have taken some tremendous strides this year by cutting back on his turnovers, Being with Jim Harbaugh, I think, really helped him understand the quarterback position better. Like you said, there was some throws that he got away with. Should have had more interceptions, and the interception that he did throw, I can remember at least 2 of them not really, being completely on him. But they have a lot to build off from with the season that Justin had. But he got to win these playoff games, man. He has to win these big crunch time moments. He has to beat Patrick Mahomes to finally get that black cloud, from over his head. Because right now it just seems like he can't. Not only that he can't win, but he can't win the big games and he can't win the close games. So at some point he's going to have to answer that bell, and hopefully it can be next year. Because, like I said again, he has taken some major strides in this season under Jim Harbaugh's first season as the LA Chargers head football coach.
I mean, it does not take long for quarterbacks or players to get the rap that they can't come through in clutch moments. I mean, that has chased Kirk Cousins his entire NFL career and almost undermines all of the great regular season success he's had, that he only has the one playoff win. He easily in this game, it was right there for them. Their first drive, they go downfield, they kick a field goal. If there were receivers open, they score a touchdown there, they go up 7-0. Then Mitchie fumbles. They could have been up 14-0 in the first game.
Yep.
Okay, and if that happens, they win, in my opinion. So whether it's nerves, he hadn't been in the playoffs in a few years. It's the first game with Jim Harbaugh. I'm just saying he's getting a bad reputation in my mind.
He is.
And now it's well deserved. And before it was, it's Brandon Staley's fault. There are too many injured players. It's this guy's fault. Well, when you start making $55 million a year, I'm not in the mood.
You don't have many players.
Exactly. That's true too. I'm not in the mood to point the finger at other people. And then the last thing I'll say is on Houston. CJ Stroud is now, I think, the 6th quarterback in NFL history to win a playoff game in his rookie and sophomore seasons. So for them to do this, even though they had high expectations this year, that's a good job by the Texans in back-to-back years with a very young quarterback to make it to the round of 8. They're playing with big-time house money.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get into this more the next time we tape, but they've got a win under their belt, and Kansas City's guys haven't played in 3 weeks.
26 days, right?
So I don't think it's that much. We'll have to double check that.
I want to say it's like 20-something days for the starters that didn't play in week 17, and then had 2.
That's right, because it was a Christmas game.
Yeah.
So it's even longer. You're right, because that game was playing on a Wednesday and not a Sunday. That's ridiculous that they've gone that long without playing, and that has not helped teams recently, by the way. The teams that have won Super Bowls have not rested in week 18. So they answered the bell. They looked like they were going to lose one of the ugliest games out there, and then Stroud engineered that drive right before the half and played much better in the second half of the year. And like we said, Justin Herbert just completely self-imploded. So
on a good look.
Pat, I'll work on trying to fix the Steelers over the next few days. We will get back together Thursday night. No game to recap. We will preview all the divisional round matchups. Again, subscribe, rate, review to the podcast. We've previewed and recapped every game of the NFL season in 2024, and we'll finish strong with the playoffs here on First and Pod.